From the land of conjurers, flying through the internet to like UAP, haunting the unexplained and downright weird. This is the Witching Hours, and we're ready to take off in the flash of an eye. Good evening to one and all, wherever or whenever you are listening to this program. I am Jonathan Frost, and joining me, as always, is the medium Jenny Lee. How are you doing, Jenny?
I'm doing well and excited.
Yeah, excited. Yeah, I think we're all excited for the show tonight. Lots going on. In case you haven't seen, I have my my wanna get weird on here. So yeah, so if you want to get weird, you can head on over to the witchinghourspodcast.com and pick one up for yourself. Another great show tonight. We're looking forward to it, but first we got to get into the news. You ready for the news, Jenny?
Yep.
All right. The news.
Where's our news intro?
I can hit it. Let me see what I got over here. Still getting used to the new.
That's what I was waiting for.
There's the news.
I was waiting for that. I'm like,
yeah. Join us for our slightly weird news tonight. If you want to look for things that are even weirder, you can tune into tonight's presidential debates.
That's tonight.
So if you want to go, I think you'll find, I don't know, that's probably going to be very interesting, although probably full of hot air. The first story tonight, futurists predict humans will soon live 1,000 years thanks to nanobots and AI. Acclaimed futurist and computer scientist Raymond Kurzweil thinks humans are on the cusp of extending their lifespans to nearly a millennium through the merger of biotechnology, artificial intelligence, and nanobots, which I had seen recently too. Neil deGrasse Tyson has said that he thinks the first human has been born that has the potential to live essentially forever. Kurzweil, a recipient of the 1999 Presidential National Medal of Technology and Innovation, envisions a future where human longevity is drastically extended, potentially allowing individuals to live up to 1,000 years. In his latest book, he has a book out called The Singularity is Near, and basically he's talking about that will very soon surpass the oldest verified living human, which was 122 years old.
Cheryl gave a thumbs down from the green room, just so everybody knows. I agree.
We can talk about it when she comes on too. But the question, I think, is, I don't know. I'm split because I wouldn't mind knowing that I had a lot more time on one hand. On the other hand, how long would you really want to live for 1,000 years?
That sounds like a long time.
That's a long time. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's a good question. So let us know in chat, would you be willing to have nanobots in your bloodstream to repair your organs and get rid of cancers and stuff like that and be able to live thousands of years? I don't know.
Keisha says, no, Keisha.
Which brings in some interesting questions when it comes to things that we talk about, like past lives and what kind of processes could be interrupted there. Number 2 story tonight, summer camps and scary stories. The goosebump-inducing tradition may be on its way out. A 2015 study found about a third of all summer camps prohibited ghost stories, while only a fraction encouraged them. Camp staff cite concerns over potentially traumatizing children and the desire to make camp fun rather than scary. But some say that you can tailor these to the surroundings and can bring a camp to life, and so on and so forth. Science appears to be on that side. Some research suggests that children that engage in risky and fear-inducing forms of play may have a decreased risk of developing anxiety disorders, says cognitive scientist Mark Malmdorf Anderson, who researches recreational fear and its benefits at Aarhus University in Denmark. So while age appropriate scares can indeed be traumatizing. Scary situations that are appropriate for their age can help children develop ways of handling stress and fear. By
Mhm.
exposing themselves to fear-inducing situations that are manageable, children can learn what those physical states feel like and how they might be handled. So
Mm,
the
yeah.
benefits of a good scary
Mhm.
story, as we're starting to lose them evidently. And then
And
the
I
final
was there's scientific and common sense things about adolescent brain development that has to do with uh, when you get to your adolescence, you're having to take risks, and I think that's one of the problems that our young people have today is that they're not willing to take risks anymore,
Mhm.
and that's part of their brain development. Like that's they should be doing it, and yeah, so
Well,
just
actually,
taking out the scary campfire story is probably ain't gonna help that any.
well, in the article, actually, the researcher goes on to talk about that specifically, but almost in an opposite way. They're saying as teenagers become more risk takers
Mhm.
without these scary stories, that it almost encourages their risky behavior rather than being like, oh well, these
If
things.
kids taking risks, they're never gonna move out of your house,
Yeah,
period.
and
Do you
quite
want them to live in your basement forever till you die and then they get your house? No.
yeah.
Let them tell their scary stories. Anyway, what's the next story?
Well, quite possibly the scariest story of the night. Bible required to be taught in Oklahoma classrooms. On Thursday,
Oh,
Oklahoma
yeah.
State Superintendent Ryan Walters issued a memorandum that all Oklahoma schools are now required to incorporate the Bible into their curriculum. In a news release, which says the directive to school districts is effective immediately, schools are required to add the book as an instructional support into curriculum across specified grade levels.
At this point
And
in time, I'm real glad that I got out of teaching.
yeah, in a
Not that we
copy,
live there.
yeah, in a copy to the directive sent Thursday to all school superintendents, the Oklahoma State Department of Education said grades 5 through 12 will have the Bible in their curriculum. And this
Yikes.
follows another story out of Louisiana this week, which is going to require all public schools to display the Christian commandments in each classroom.
I mean, that's like not right, but at the same time, like whatever. Kids don't read the stuff on the walls anyway. But
Yeah.
like the teachers having to teach the Bible in the public school, like it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I know it's Oklahoma, but come on, people. I'm sure there's plenty of people who live in Oklahoma that believe in a lot of other different religions, not just your Christian one. Oh, man.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be challenged really quickly because the moment that happens, there are going to be other religious texts that
Uh,
teachers are going to begin to read. And if you try to get rid of one religious text,
if you thought
so
teaching the SOLs was hard before, now you gotta
yeah.
teach the
Oh
Bible
boy,
too.
I'm gonna have to go brush up on my Aramaic, evidently. I don't know.
Mm,
Okay, so
we
there we
better
go.
stop we better stop talking about that one because both of us are gonna go into a
Yeah,
shit fit here in a second.
yeah.
Okay.
All right. So here we go for our show tonight. Cheryl Costa is a New York State native. She served in the United States Air Force from 1970 to 1972 with a combat service in Vietnam. She also served in the United States Navy in a Cold War submarine. During her professional career, she became a vocationally published and produced one act playwright with over 20 titles to her name. Some of her plays have been produced internationally. She enjoyed a 32-year aerospace industry career at Lockheed Martin. And after she retired, she completed a bachelor's degree with the State University of New York at Empire State College in entertainment writing and production. She's had a 3 times published contributing mystery writer in the popular mystery anthology Adirondack Mysteries and Other Mountain Tales. In her post-retirement, she pursued a vocational career as a columnist with the Syracuse New Times, writing the blog column New York Skies, which is about UFOs. Both Cheryl and her wife Linda are considered respected UFO researchers with several groundbreaking books, including UFO Sightings Desk Reference and the UFO Beat. She was a staff writer for Wicca magazine and a freelance writer for several other magazines. In 2021, she published Magical Musings of a Rogue Witch, a book about personal magical practice in her life as a Wicca clergy for 44 years. Please, everyone, welcome to the show, Cheryl Costa. How are you doing, Cheryl?
Oh, yeah. A thrill a minute,
Yeah, well, we were talking a little bit before the show started. We know that you've been busy. It's been busy. It's been busy. I think the world just seems to be more busy, Cheryl. And obviously that was, with all the things that we've been talking about lately, there's a million things going on. We had you on last summer, so welcome back for the second time.
Yay!
Thank you.
And I know last summer we kind of started off the conversation with what was going on. There was so much information coming out about UFOs, UAPs, government, congressional hearings, and everything was kind of up in the air. Where are we on that? How do you feel about?
Hold your thought, Frosty.
Okay, go ahead.
Because Keisha would like to know: does she want to throw in about the news? Anything you want to say about any? Because you were doing a lot of hand signals and gestures while we were talking about the news. So she wanted to know if is there anything you want to talk about from the news?
Yeah, that's I feel the same way, Cheryl. But I don't go over the typical headlines. I try to leave all the typical headlines out, all the political headlines out. But I felt like,
can I give you an academic view?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Politics. Okay. The word poly is in Latin means many.
Yeah.
And ticks means blood-sucking creatures. Politics.
Many blood-sucking creatures. Yeah.
Well, I will say I was a history person, but I went and also got a minor in political science. I think we talked about this the other night, because I was interested in politics. I was interested in trying to make positive change, maybe getting into that field. And very quickly, I found from every political science professor I ever had seemed to be like the most jaded, fed up with the world. Like, I liked all of my political science professors, but they were all like very like, yeah, it's all BS, and I'm just making my paycheck.
Tavorish. That's yes, comrade in Russian.
Yeah. It's crazy out there. But as what I was getting to previously, any changes this year? There's still a ton of information coming out, all the congressional hearings that have happened. How do you feel about all the information that's coming out?
Congressman down in Tennessee, Burkhart.
Yeah.
Okay. I wrote a 17-page technical report for them last year. Okay. And I had several talk hosts went to them and said, listen to this chick. Okay. And I sent them maps of all the zip code, how many zip codes, there's 41,900 zip codes in the United States. 18,650 had UFO sightings between 2001 and 2020. There's about 3,135 counties, and only 105 did not report UFOs in that 20-year period. And people are saying, oh, there's no such thing as these things.
Yeah.
Actually, Linda and I have completely backed away right now, because it seems we were going gangbusters with congressional hearings.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly it was like somebody, excuse the expression, put a turd in a punch bowl. Everybody went home.
Yeah.
And you haven't really been hearing a lot out of them. And and if you look at it from my perspective as a journalist, suddenly there was these people deep in the Pentagon suddenly managed to shut down Congress with this topic. Okay. There's two schools of thought. As someone who former worked with the intelligence services, they have somebody on everybody. Okay. Or they told them something they don't want to know, and it's the old idea of how did they used to say it in movies? I shouldn't tell you, and if I do tell you, you'll probably want to kill yourself. That kind of thing. And I got a feeling they really, really have put the fix in. And the stupid thing about it is those people deep in the Pentagon, they work for us. We're the taxpayers. We're the American people. They work for us. They get their funding through Congress, or most from Congress. There's been allegations that some of them were operating outside of congressional control. I've read several quiet articles, journalist to journalist, that talked about this sort of thing. And I basically just walked away from the nonsense. I know what I know. Yeah. And they're too terrified to report the numbers of 2 old ladies in Ohio. Then they've got bigger fish to fry. So I'm not worried about it. I walked away. I'm publishing. I just wrote a spy novel. I had nothing better to do. So I wrote a spy novel this past year. It's coming out in about a month. It's called The Second Oldest Profession. Now, what is the second oldest profession? The spy business. The first oldest profession is prostitution.
Yeah, I was about to say.
And the second oldest profession has less morals than the first.
Trust me. Sometimes you can combine them. Job 1 and job 2. So
spy business wait a minute. Let's talk about this a second. A lot of people, when they think spy business, they tend to think of like a Mission Impossible. They tend to think of James Bond and everything. Actually, spy business, as the second oldest profession, was more about the economy of information, buying and selling of information. So the best place to do this, and where spy business actually came from, was the selling of economic information. What is making Joe's bar down the street better than my bar? Okay, what's their secret? Okay, that type of thing. How do they make those crops grow better than our crops? That kind of thing. So
not necessarily statecraft.
Not always, not necessarily statecraft. Heck, there are spies in the Bible. Okay, various people being sent in to listen to what the people on the other side were doing, and the best place to do it is not heroic men with guns and swords, but usually quiet women serving drinks and just listening well.
Yeah,
women are the great unsung heroes of the spy business. Most of them retired and died in obscurity, where we celebrated all the guys, and I'm very sensitive to that issue, because that's probably what's going to happen to me. But
I know that was big in the American Revolution too. There was a large spy network that included many women as well.
Well, they talk about the Lady 355 as if it was a single aristocratic lady who was doing it. It was actually a very substantial spy network of women, and virtually in that era, women could go any place. Dress the frumpier the better, and women are virtually invisible. And the best job you can do as a spy is to be quiet, anonymous, and listen.
Yeah, I felt I could do that. Nobody ever knows I'm there, so yeah, I'd be a great spy.
And there's less car chases. There's almost no car chases. There is. My novel. Okay, I got to tell you what my editor just said at the publisher. Right, she read the thing and says, "Wow, I was expecting boom, boom, shoot 'em up, car races and such. And what am I getting? One of the spies going through charm school, pretty dresses, ballroom dancing, tango dancing. Holy God, this is cool. This is a girl's spy novel." So you'll have to have a copy of that. It's splendid fun, and it spans 44 years of this particular protagonist's life, and it's based on a couple of people. So
it sounds very exciting. Keisha what you think you just said it, but when is it coming out?
July, no later than August.
Awesome.
Literally, the publisher had the galleys last week. She had about 30 notes for me, about 10 sentences to submit for plug into the script someplace. But I got the cover back. The cover was done by a lady out in Hollywood who's a friend of mine. Her day job is she designs movie posters for the movies you go see. And she did the front cover of my book, and she did it for pocket change. The movie companies pay thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of dollars for these posters. I got my cover for $100. It was great.
Yay.
And it's a brilliant cover.
I imagine the book will be on your Amazon page.
Yes, it will be available on Amazon.
Cool.
It'll be a 6x9 trade paperback. And like I said, it starts out like in 1979, old school. Oh, by the way, the protagonist happens to be a trainee character. Ooh,
yay.
You know?
Well, the best authors say, write what you know.
Write what you know.
Yeah.
One of the themes that goes with this, so I won't drag this out. There were these two trainee operatives working for this one particular intelligence agency. Okay. And why did these agencies have Princeton guys, Harvard guys, Yale guys? That's what you think of when you think of the American spy business. And they hired these two chicks because logic would suggest that those spy agencies would never, ever hire somebody like them. Okay. It was the perfect cover. Okay. And the weirder they were in their real identities, the less chance anybody would guess that they were these other identities. And it was the flavor of it. And they did some pretty crazy stuff.
Sounds really fun.
Should be fun. And as they say, the fiction is the lie. The truth is between the lines if you read it carefully.
Say no more.
No more.
So when I asked you to come back on, I promised you that we would get into some witchcraft stuff tonight too. So I want to get some of my UFO questions out of the way, and we can move firmly into.
Sure, please do whatever you want
into that realm.
And whatever questions come up, please.
Well, I had a question just to throw out there, and maybe you've never heard of this before, but me and Jenny both had an experience recently, a few months ago, where we kind of saw something in the sky. But it had never been anything like I had seen reported. And then lo and behold, a couple of days ago, I was just kind of perusing my Twitter feed. I saw kind of on UFO Twitter a video come up with people talking about peekaboo stars. And it kind of struck me straight as I was sitting there, just almost like in shock, because here was this kind of phenomena that me and Jenny had seen for multiple nights in a row outside of our house, of what looked to be a star. You wouldn't think anything about it, except it was flashing different color lights. If you zoomed into it with your phone, you could see the different color lights coming out, and then it would very kind of slowly, like kind of wobble around the sky. It wouldn't move like a satellite would, because at first I was like, "Oh, it's a satellite."
Wobble.
Yeah. It would just kind of wobble around. And then I was telling Jenny about them the other night. It's like, hey, I found some other people reporting this thing. They're calling it a peekaboo star. And then as we went for our nightly walk, I think we saw about
literally he said the sentence, and we looked up in the sky, and there was two different ones in two different parts of the sky. I wanted to know, is that type of thing something that was reported in your collection of information?
No,
that's new.
Relatively.
Wow.
Okay, here's two theories behind it.
Okay.
People with drones who are trying to fake you out. Okay. And we've seen some pretty interesting displays at fireworks displays using drones.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And the other thinking is that ET has been pushing all the stuff with this the congressional hearings and everything has been based on sightings over the last 20 years, buzzing carrier groups within the Navy and all that sort of thing. Okay. And the idea is that when we were putting our statistics book together, we were of the impression, by looking at the scale of the sightings, that ET is pushing contact. They're trying to make it very difficult for the government to ignore them anymore. Okay. And that's what it seems to be. So people are seeing all kinds of wonderful stuff everywhere. Okay. There's some teams down in Mexico that are photographing these things, but you can only see them in infrared cameras, that type of thing. And they're
Right.
flying out of volcanoes, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
there's lots of activity. But like I said, I've got the best numbers in the country. People ask me, what do you do? I said, I'm a UFO statistician. They said, are very many of them? I said, yeah, and I'm married to the other one. And
Mhm.
so
You got it cornered.
yeah,
Gotcha.
and the thing is, major media will not report our numbers because they think those are too fantastic. It can't be that big. They
Yeah.
aren't willing to believe. Okay.
And then if you actually look at those numbers and say how many people aren't reporting,
Yeah.
which is probably a vast majority,
Two,
then what
100,
would those
257 to 1 for every one sighting report. And in 2001 to 2020, there was 637,632 reported sightings in the 167,632 reported sightings in the United States in that 20-year period. Okay. And only 1 in 250 people 57 people who saw something reported it.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And we have polling data and statistical report data to back it up. Now, when you think about, okay, let's say people say, well, you got to take out. I used to have a guy at Staples. He was the manager of Staples, and I used to come down there with a thumb drive and print off a chapter to see if the layout was okay and everything like that. And it was cheaper to do that. And I would go down there, and he'd say, "You did take out all the kooks, nuts, and crackpots, right?"
Yeah.
And I said, Sam, how would I do that? Well, you got to take some out. Take 5 or 10% out. I said, I'll do you one better. Let me take 70% and throw it away and only keep 30%. Okay.
Mhm.
And that 167,632 works out to about 50,000 over 20 years, worked out to about 2,500 per year. And it came down to about 25 or 30 a month every month for the 240 months of 20 years. Now,
Mhm.
think about what that means. 200 starships a month every month for the 240 month of 20 years are visiting our United States. Because I'm only doing United States numbers.
Yeah.
Well,
That's the scary number. Nobody
Yeah.
wants to hear that. And that's only 30%
yeah.
of the numbers.
Yeah. That's only a tiny fraction of the actual numbers.
Yeah.
Well, Cheryl, it's one of those things where exactly what you just said. Well, we have to cut these number out because we have all my family living up there, on the other side of the mountains that maybe had a little bit too much moonshine or whatever, and that has to be the majority of the people making these claims. But I think
No,
that
it
has
doesn't.
been,
No,
I
it
think
doesn't.
that is, yeah, it's been a
No.
disinformation thing for a long time that's been produced because so many of the people who have these sightings are military personnel, police, firemen, trained professionals, security. I mean, these aren't
Trained observers. Yes.
trained observers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, and here's the goofy thing. People, I used to have these guys in these FM stations would say, "Oh yeah, when is the most sightings?" I said, "Saturday night." They're all on drugs and drunk. And the thing is, UFO reports have as much charm to do one of the two national agencies. They have all the charm of filling out a credit report. It's a lot of questions. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the thing that puts most people off. And if you're drunk and stoned, you're certainly not going to be able to fill out one of these reports.
No.
Yeah.
So this whole
And
fallacy, they're all drunk, they're crazy, or they're stoned, doesn't fly.
Yeah.
I've seen well, I've had two cases in my life where I've seen a UFO enough to be able to repeat it to tell somebody I think I saw a UFO. And believe me, I've had my fair share of drinks, Cheryl. But neither time was I inebriated.
Yeah.
So, it's not something I saw when I was stumbling around in the backyard after having one too many. It was me working as a security guard, and it was me going on an evening stroll with my wife around the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's been very interesting. it's also curious from time to time how we seem to get different kinds of sightings and how what people see changes from time to time. I know about a decade ago it was becoming really popular, and lots of people were seeing the orange spheres or the orange orbs. And
Mhm.
now to have this peekaboo star phenomenon, like it's like a definitely a different kind of thing.
We have
Um,
different folks coming here all the time.
Yeah.
mhm.
Okay. And depending upon how you look at the reported species that has supposedly been here, the government owns up to 60. Other agencies seem to think it's up. We've had upwards of 100, just in what I'm going to say 20th, 21st century terms, upwards of 170, no, I'm sorry, 127 different species have visited us at one time or another. And there are
Wow.
some that are just locally based, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. We had a question
Interesting.
earlier
Sure.
from Void Cat
Mhm.
Loose. If you are familiar with the Skinwalker Ranch show, they wanted to know what your opinion is of their experiments.
I'm not impressed with the experiments that I've heard about.
Mm-hmm.
I had a very nice long conversation with the two Native American Rangers
Oh
that
yeah.
used to be on
Mhm.
that show.
Yeah.
I was speaking down at Roswell last year, and I had a pleasant conversation with them. A couple of very stoic guys, believe me. They didn't suffer fools, trust me.
Yeah.
But we had a nice conversation, and my consensus on stuff that's going on at Skinwalker Ranch. There was a movie back in the 80s. It was called Time Holes. Okay. And it was, I think it was done by the Monty Pythons or something like that.
Okay.
And, but there were these holes in time that open up and things. And I'm of the impression that what's going on at Skinwalker Ranch is something on that order where we've got it's kind of a thin spot in our dimension to maybe a number of other dimensions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I'm kind of coming from. And beyond that, I'm not an expert on Skinwalker Ranch. I got a lot of friends that are, but
Mm-hmm.
we don't
Mhm.
talk about it very much because they know I don't like to talk about it.
Yeah. We like to watch the show just to make fun of how many times they shoot rockets. Can make a drinking game out of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
oh, I was gonna say my thought on the show is I think there's something going on out there. It's hard to tell
Mhm.
because when anything is produced, you don't know how much Hollywood, I mean, even though it might not be Hollywood, is playing a role in what's being done on the
Oh, I
show.
agree with you.
But I feel like there's being that they do have a PhD doing the show, I would think there'd be some kind of scientific integrity to it. Um
You would
there's something
hope.
going on there. I don't know what it is, but I will say it seems like now that they have a lot of questions, they don't really know where to move forward
Mhm.
Okay,
at
let me
this
give
point.
you a flavor. I worked with two different producers over 2 years. They
Mhm.
came to me because I hit the numbers. Okay.
Yeah.
And one of the best ideas we pitched them was the idea of UFO Roadshow. Okay.
Ooh.
Kind of patterned after Antique Roadshow. Okay.
Yeah.
We would send an advance man. Using the data, I've been able to find. See, everybody thinks there's this hot spot, that place you can almost set your watch by. Okay. Where they show up every day. Okay. And
Yeah.
there are places that have a lot of sightings like that, but it's not as often as you think. It's mostly folklore of people telling stories about the fact that they've had a number of them over the years, but it's not like they're there every day, but it would give you the impression they're there every week. Okay.
Mhm.
That's what we found. Give an example. Okay, kids, if you're listening out there in the chat with this thing, get your pencil out. I'm going to give you a cool number here. Okay, get your pencil out.
Okay.
Okay, zip code 85001. That's zip code 85001. Downtown Phoenix, Arizona, in Maricopa County, Arizona. Okay, is the number one zip code in the country in the last 20 years for sightings. And even they only average about 5 sightings a month.
Mm.
Okay. Now, Maricopa County is the number 2 county in the United States of 3,030 counties that reported UFOs. Los Angeles County is number 1, not the city, Los Angeles County. And
Yeah.
Los Angeles County is not all bright lights. As soon as you get away from the downtown metropolitan area, it's suddenly suburbs, and suburbs are where 70% of the sightings are. Any place. And a lot of your knee-jerk armchair experts will say, oh, it's Cheryl, it's always about the downtown populated areas of these big cities. That's where all the sighting is. More eyes on the sky. But the data doesn't show, it doesn't hold up to that. We found that when we give you an example of Cleveland, Ohio, where I live. Cleveland, Ohio had over 20 years, had 21 sightings in downtown Cleveland. But if you go out into the suburbs, the bedroom communities beyond the suburbs, the unincorporated little communities further out in the suburbs and out into the rural areas of the county, they had 29 or 30 sightings over that same period of time. It's about leisure time and hours of darkness.
Yeah.
Okay. So that happens in the burbs. Okay. Or out in the country. So that's the deal. And we made this argument for a road show. And we said, well, send an advance guy there to advertise it, rent a VFW hall or a theater or something. I'll come, bring me in. We'll bring our camera crews in. I will do a conference grade presentation, show the big numbers. And with the cameras all there and this whole big hoo-ha we're doing there, we got an instant casting call. Get a signed release, and Ma and Pa America will tell you what they saw.
Yeah.
Okay. First rule when you try to pitch to television producers, and I've got a long experience dealing with it. If you have an aquarium at home, go ahead and pitch a UFO show to your goldfish and your tropical fish. You'll get about the same reaction. Pitching programs to produce TV producers like pitching goldfish. Okay. I've given up. I have given up trying to produce these guys. I have pitched to more of them than you can shake a stick at in the last couple of years. I had one guy had me under contract for a year. We pitched it to Travel Channel. We pitched it to the History Channel. Any of those major Discovery, all those people, we pitched this idea. Okay. And they weren't interested.
I would have watched it.
Yeah.
Most people would have. Now, there was a show that was done. It was a contact show that was done on Netflix in the past year. First Encounters, that type of thing.
Yeah.
I was sort of on the edges of the inside track to that one. That was produced by Steven Spielberg's television division, Amblin Productions. And I had pitched them originally. They consulted with me on a number of things, but I was not included in that production. Okay. But when they were releasing it, they gave me early things to share, teasers and things like that, and promotions for it to share with the community people and fans that I have, which I did. And so they still talk to me on the, like I said, I'm on the edge of like Spielberg's organization, but do they take me seriously? I don't know. Maybe they like my spy novel. I don't know. You know?
Maybe it'll be Spielberg's next movie.
Possibly.
And the same producer, the guy I was working with for a year, he actually went out there and pitched a program with me as a witch. Okay. We pitched it to several networks. And then because, hey, I'm a trans person, I'm married to a woman, I'm gay. All right. We pitched it to the gay network. They weren't interested.
What the hell, man?
Well, the running joke was I wasn't gay enough for them. Right? Okay. I tried to join the Transgender Journalists Association last year. I wasn't tranny enough for them.
What?
I'm one of the people who coined the word transgender 30 years ago.
I know.
The State University of New York at Albany took my papers because I'm a freaking tranny version of Susan B. Anthony, and these people weren't interested in me.
Man, they're
If
missing
if you
out.
want, hey, I'm telling the truth. You want to, hey, listeners there in the chat room and things, Google Cheryl, Cheryl, Costa, Costa, SUNY, SUNY, Albany. Cheryl Costa space SUNY, Albany. And you will see a thing come up for a records collection that took 20 years, 20 or 30 years of my papers. They're calling me a Renaissance woman, for God's sakes. But I can't get a freaking TV show with some kid who swallows goldfish can, you know.
Yeah.
You're missing out on
Well-
gold, man. This is gold.
Well, then this goes right back to what you were talking about earlier too, about disinformation and stuff like that coming out, and like so much information came out. It's almost like there's been a big kickback, because I've noticed that kind of programming was getting really popular. I think it still would be really popular, but I've noticed that a lot of those networks have started cutting out a lot of any of their paranormal programming. So
I
who
spent
knows?
last week I was on a 10-day writers retreat in the Thousand Islands, and I'm under contract to provide a ghost story for a particular publisher that I get contracts to write short stories for anthologies of things. Okay. I'm a working writer in my retirement, and I sent them one story. It was supernatural enough for them, but it wasn't ghosty enough. So I said, try it again. So I went on this retreat up in a cottage up in the Thousand Islands, right across the old St. Lawrence from Canada. You could just about hit it with a rock. And I every day I wrote about 800 to 1,200 words a day, and I wrote them one really spooky ghost story, and with a team of ghost hunters, but all set in the 1960s. Okay. Ooh. And the editor went bananas over that one. But the thing is, there is a popularity for ghost stories, but the paranormal shows I think that a lot of them got too hokey.
Yeah.
You know, you usually, I'm not throwing stones. Remember the ghost guys on Sci-Fi Channel? It was a bunch of frat boys running around with infrared cameras and things, if you ask me. Okay. And they always asked stupid questions. Okay. And everything was interesting to them, but they didn't have anybody there that really truly understood it.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll give you an example. They went to a property, the house where Susan Tate was killed a long time ago. Okay. No, those Hollywood murders. Okay. The house was torn down and the property was sold. And in Hollywood, the house is not the interesting. You could have a mansion on it. A new buyer would come along, buy the property, and tear down the house and put their own mansion up. Okay. It's about the property. It's about the location. Okay. Yeah. And they had a couple of psychics there, and they were doing electronic voice recordings and things. And one of the voice recordings said in this squeaky way, light, light, I can't find the light. Okay. That tells me that spirit is trapped in that location and hasn't been able to find the light to leave.
Yeah.
Okay. But all the frat boys could say, wow, isn't that interesting? You know?
Yeah.
And did they send a psychic up there or somebody who could do soul rescue up there as follow-up? No, they didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Just about the evidence.
Yeah, they need to send a mystic up there. They really do. The same thing with the Bigfoot guys. Okay. These teams all seem to be a bunch of frat boys, and they're tromping around out there in the woods and everything. But I've asked about half a dozen of these groups at a couple of conventions I've been at. Have you bothered to take a mystic with you? Oh, no, I never thought of that. You know,
most of those ones that are really about the evidence don't believe that in mediums and all that woo-woo stuff anyway.
Yeah, that's
even
the
though
problem.
they think they're talking to ghosts. What do you think that is?
Yeah, duh.
Come on, fellas, get it together. I wanted to know: did you go to Contact Into the Desert this year?
This year, no, I was not invited.
What?
I was there last year. They invited me last year, but they wouldn't even take my phone calls this year for some reason. What we think has happened. In fact, I have not spoken at a single UFO convention this year. I usually speak to anywhere from 6 to 15.
Mhm.
I have not had one this year.
What's
And,
going on?
well, we did some checking, and the best thing we can figure out is a lot of them are in states that passed laws against transgender people and things like that.
Oh, horse
And
shit.
they didn't want to be, as one person that's sort of on the edges of the management of the conference, they didn't want to be accused of having me there and putting on a drag show.
Mm.
I'm
Well,
not
you
a
weren't
drag queen.
planning on coming with like a drag outfit and makeup or anything, were you?
No, no, no.
Then they can
No,
shove it.
and even when I did drag, my nickname, this back when I was back in my early 30s, my nickname was Vicki Lawrence because I was a spitting image of her.
Oh, that's so fun.
Okay, I was a good 40 pounds lighter than I am now, and I had red hair. I mean,
Yeah.
she sent me a nice letter.
Oh, I love her.
Somebody sent her a picture of me. Big fan, so to speak. So no,
Cool.
it's goofy stuff. I don't know why. Maybe I just maxed out on the conferences, but I did not go to Contact in the Desert this year. Now, a couple of the conventions that are a long plane flight. I told them last year, I'm 72.
Yeah.
You were talking about living for 1,000 years. I'm 72 and everything hurts.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly jumping up and down about living to 1,000 and having everything, absolutely everything hurt. Maybe the nanobots could fix it. Things like that.
Yeah, the nanobots can fix it though. Yeah, you feel like a spring chicken.
Honey, I'm a combat veteran. I was exposed to Agent Orange. I'm falling apart like an old car. I don't want to live to 1,000 the way I feel right now.
No.
So, yeah. Now, something I did travel for this year. I did go to Index, Washington, Seattle, Washington, and I did go to Spring Mysteries with the Aquarian Tabernacle Church. And that was a gas. I had an absolutely wonderful time with the mysteries. I got to meet the people who channeled various Greek gods. It was absolutely incredible experience. Plus, they taught the mysteries in a very sacred, classic theater style, and it was brilliantly done. And if you want to go to something that will absolutely take your breath away over the course of a weekend, I recommend Aquarian Tabernacle Church's ATC Spring Mysteries. They do it in March every year. And I strongly recommend you get on their mailing list because it's worth the money to go. You go to convention centers, you go to camp out festivals that are like pagan oriented and things. Some really do establish sacred space in those camps and things. And sometimes they get it right in a small hotel setting. But in a convention center, it would never happen, you would think. These people have found a way to make that place the moment you come onto the floor, you realize you are in sacred space. Okay. And it was the most brilliant thing I've seen done in my 50 years in the craft. And I sat down with the key people on a Saturday morning with a coffee and said, brilliant. How you do this is brilliant. And I'm going again next year. I don't care if I have to rob 2 banks to go.
It sounds amazing.
But it's an amazing experience. Now, the group here in Cleveland, I've been teaching a class of Wiccans for pagans and Wiccans for the past year. We started out with 55. We're down to 24, which is better than usual. Usually you finish with 10%, but we're down to 20, and there are gangbusters going. They're going to be initiated in September. And we teach it like a journey of the hero over the course of a year. And there are challenges all through the year. And of course, we all, as the instructors, my instructors were all my second degree. So they were my TAs this time around, my training assistants. So this is how they were finishing up their third degree requirements, the way I teach things.
Oh, yeah.
And so there were 5 of us teaching. And one of the things that came out of this whole thing, we were sitting there saying, what if all 55 people, this is before a bunch of people, we weeded a bunch of people out.
Yeah.
What if all 55 people complete this? How the hell are we going to do an initiation for 55 people? we're using a Unitarian church. We thought, well, maybe we could darken the church some Thursday night in fall or something like this and run a big spook house or something. We didn't know what to do. Well, we're down to 20. We knew we were going to be down to about 25 or 30. And so I came into them about a month and a half ago and said, okay, in your journey over the year, you have all confronted yourselves with caves. Each of you have your own monsters. We have pushed all your buttons. We have made you confront things. Some of us have fallen away and have gone away. Some of you are still here. You have been victorious in your caves. Okay, here is your last challenge. I signed a contract with Cleveland Pagan Pride Day, and this class is doing all the opening, closing, and main ritual. You have to write it, guys. You have to costume it. You have to write it. You have to perform it. And about 5 people walked out of the
Weeded out some more people.
Yeah, but we've done something. We have a theme. This is liminal space. This is Egypt. Welcome to ancient Egypt. Welcome to our village, you pilgrims and local visitors. Welcome to Egypt, where the ancient gods of Egypt and goddesses walk the earth. And we have various members of our class that have had friends build them costumes, and they are going to walk around the conference over the whole weekend and role play those gods and goddesses all weekend.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
It's a magical thing. It really is.
Yeah, when we had you on last year, you were just getting ready to start working with that church and being their person. So I was going to ask you how that went. It sounds like it's gone really well. And you're
the class. It's 2 Saturdays for 3 hours each Saturday for the past year per month. 2 Saturdays per month. They're starting to book us into the fall for the next class starting in September. Okay,
nice.
We've already getting people who are signing up for it, want to be in it. We have one whole family, father, mother, and 2 teenage kids that are signing up for it, which surprised the heck out of me.
That's cool.
It's gone very well. Now, that's on the side that I'm teaching, the pagan thread of things. I have been roped into, I am now the pagan chaplain of that church. And for a retired person, I now have a schedule. Oh, by the way, I'm rotating.
Retired person ever.
Yes, and I've been rotated in, and everything hurts. Trust me. I've been rotated in. Would you believe I'm rotated into the sermon schedule? So I give legitimate sermons at the pulpit. The first one I did was last Samhain, on the Sunday just before Samhain, and I gave one about how the goddesses and women fell from grace. And it ran a little bit longer than a normal sermon. None of the men would talk to me or shake hands to me after the service, but the women were hugging and kissing me.
Yeah. You pissed off all the dudes.
Oh, baby, God, I pissed them off. But they videotape these things on YouTube type of thing, and you can play back the sermons. The average sermon recording of a service type of thing is maybe 75 or 100 views. I've had almost 300 views.
Nice.
So it's been pretty fun, and there's more good stuff to come because we've got a really good team. Almost all 5 of my instructors have taken the cream of the crop from the class. I picked 4. They've all picked 2 or 3, and we've established what we call a sorcerer's apprentice, sorcerer's apprentices. And mine come here to my apartment, and we sit here, and it's like a half soiree, half magical teachings. It's a 2nd degree class, and it's very intimate with the teacher. And these students are going bananas already, and they've only had 2 or 3 meetings with me. So
that sounds so fun.
This is going to be rocking. We're trying to do something really good and try to take pagan faith a lot more mainstream.
Yeah.
And not make it mainstream, but make mainstream like us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's something that I feel like it's getting there. Maybe not even like Wicca or witchcraft, which I think that is too, but I think all kinds of what would have been considered alternative spirituality is becoming much more mainstream than it used to be.
Yes, yes, very much so.
Which maybe is why we're getting some of the news stories like we had at the beginning of the show today. Maybe that's where that's coming from. It's a kickback from all these other religions that are getting more popular, or more spiritual beliefs that are getting more popular.
Yeah, yeah, I would not disagree with you. I saw the thing about the 10 Commandments, but the thing I liked the other day was the meme that was going around and showed the 10 Commandments in Hebrew.
Yeah. Slap
Yeah.
that one up on the wall.
Yeah, a point that I made with the with that sermon last year, and this is what blew everybody's socks off in the church. You could have heard a pin drop because I'm usually pretty funny. Okay, I give a sermon very much like a stand-up comedy routine, and one of the points that we made was the first prohibitions to sorceresses and witchcraft comes from the Hebrew Bible. Thou shalt not suffer a sorceress to live. Well, that is based on the fact that it was Exodus. Well, that was during the 40 years in the desert. And Moses came down with those 10 rocks with the scripture on it, right? And one says, I am your Lord thy God. I'll have no other gods before me. It didn't say I'm the only God. It just says I'm not going to have anybody else. And the problem was it didn't mention 51% of the population. They happened to worship the goddess Ashara, his consort. Okay. Ashara. That's the symbol Spock shows us. Well, that's Ashara in Hebrew. So the point is suddenly the reason women started getting prosecuted for witchcraft is they were still venerating a female face of God, and the Jewish hierarchy came down on it. And of course, it rolled into Christian Judeo hierarchy and all that stuff. They just could not have women worshiping their own face of God. So that's how women and all the goddesses fell from grace. And there's many academics that back me up on that.
Yeah.
So.
But yet
I'm
still
not being
celebrate Easter every year.
anti-Semitist. I'm sorry?
Yeah, I said, but yet we still celebrate Easter every year, and people don't really realize what that's all about either.
And
if they only knew what they were celebrating.
And you, well, no, somebody asked me in a coffee talk we were doing in the church. He said, well, people, you guys, you pagans are trying to usurp Christmas. I said, no, you're usurping us. I said, look at the Christmas tree. Look at that wreath. That is a male and female symbol, baby. Okay. They said, well, why would they do that in the middle of the winter? I said, to get a woman pregnant, and she would deliver 9 months later when the crops were coming in, when she would be most capable of nourishing a new child. Okay. Yeah. So I showed them the logic for every holiday they pick that they claim is ours or claim is theirs, So it's fun to do with witch.
So what exactly are the final people that make it through this year and a day class? What is it that they're actually getting initiated into? Like, what's the title or whatever?
They're being well, this is the funny thing. I had these 10 students. I advertised out for an advanced class 2 years ago. And 35 people applied. I took 10. I graduated 5. Okay. And it was essentially a second degree class. And it was a serious, almost no wand waving and candle lighting. It was a serious head shaping class.
Yeah.
Okay? It was like a philosophy class. Okay. And then they taught another year with me. So they've been through essentially 2 years of seminary. Okay. So, but what I didn't know until we actually started teaching class, I had never asked them who they individually venerate. They're all just pagan folks, right?
Yeah.
And turned out all 5 of us were Egyptian pantheon. Two of us were priestesses of Isis. We had a priestess of Thoth. We had a priestess of Anubis, and we had one who was venerates the Wadjet, the cobra queen of the cobra goddess of the Lower Nile. So we had a very wide range. We had 5 people who were venerating 5 of the top 100 of the 1503 Egyptian gods,
Wow.
And so, yeah, okay, we're initiating them in the fellowship of Isis.
Cool.
Okay. But get them into a circle, they'll practice like any other pagan. Okay. But that's just, we're not trying to convert them, but gee whiz, an awful lot of them have come to our view. Because they found out that the Egyptian gods are extremely talkative.
Yeah.
Once we showed them how to touch them. Oh, what a chatty bunch.
The last time you were on, you were talking about working with a set, and now you're talking about ISIS.
Well, Set and ISIS are the same thing.
Just two different names.
Okay. Set is the Egyptian pronunciation. Okay. And ISIS, ISIS is how the Greeks pronounce it. So we call her not there. There it is. My business cards. I don't know if you can see them here. There you go. Right.
Oh yeah.
Okay, there you go. Takes a second. Okay, and it says I'm a priestess of a Set. Okay, and it's got a big ice set on the back, and it said I serve. Service, sacrifice, compassion, and love unto all things. That's what we're about.
Cool.
Okay. And this is my clergy card. I've got a nice badge that I wear. It's got my picture on it. Got ISIS over top of it, and that's what I use when I go to do the hospital calls and all that kind of stuff. I'm working clergy. And
cool.
I'm licensed in the state of Ohio to marry people. So,
yay.
So that's the other thing. We're working on getting our own license and our own 501c3 to be a legal church here in the Cleveland, Ohio area. That's probably about 6 months to a year down the road. There's a lot of paperwork that has to be done, but we've got sponsorship on several levels. So this is something that's coming together. And 30 years ago, I used to be friends with Pete Pathfinder, who established Aquarian Tabernacle Church in Washington State. And him and I agreed on one thing. We weren't going to be taken seriously till we had our own little church on the corner.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're growing that. We're growing that slowly.
So I wanted to know how you experience her. How do you, when you're communing with her, or talking to her, or she's talking to you, like what kind of what's going on there? How do you experience it?
I'll say it this way. I carry an emanation of her. She has been with me since 1990. She attached an emanation to me about 8 years ago. Okay. And it's a stream of consciousness thing. Imagine some days I can sit here and have a meditation in a big easy chair, and it's like we're having a tea party. Okay.
Yeah.
On the other hand, she's a hell of a backseat driver. I want to scream at somebody in traffic, and she tells me that's beneath you.
Ooh.
Okay.
Yeah.
And don't try and turn them into a toad, and don't make the transmission fall out, that kind of thing, that's kind of how it works. But the view goes both ways. Her view, my view has been through her eyes, how she sees us and how she loves every one of us and admires us, especially with the foibles of the human condition and how we suffer.
Yeah.
This is compassion from an immortal being, so to speak. Okay. And she gets to see humanity through my eyes. And as also being a Buddhist, she wants to understand that view of why living in the God realms isn't the best thing either. Where people say, there's all these realms and all of them have their own form of suffering. Even the gods suffer. Okay.
Yeah.
And I get to see the world through her eyes sometimes, actually a lot of the time anymore. And I see how we can be our best. because
Yeah.
she showed me what our best moments are and what the best of humankind is. And that has been a tremendous learning experience for me as a priestess. Ginger Nicole also channels her. A little less experience, but we kind of have two different views. I find her to be very set to be very chatty. Ginger says, no. She's very stoic. She makes me do half the talking, that kind of thing. You don't even want to talk to the chick who's connected to Anubis. You don't even want to talk to him. Great guy. Great. The dog boy is fantastic, but I'm sorry. But the Egyptian gods are a very playful bunch, much more than people realize. All they see is these hieroglyphics with it, all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
But they're real. And these gals we're down to only one man in the class at this point. And the women not all of them are channeling. Some are going to be their mundane escorts, so that people at the conference or the convention the Pagan Pride Day, 5,000 people go to this thing, and we don't want anybody to molest the goddess. Okay, so we have somebody escort them, and these people are. From what I saw last week when I started talking to a couple of the classmates, I could see it in their eyes. They're starting to channel these deities. This is a good thing. They're going to do a good job. It'll probably be half role play, half divinely inspired, and I'm excited to watch it happen.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I can tell you. Now, some people in your crew listening might think this is all BS.
No, they don't.
Wait till you've been in this stuff about 30 years, baby,
You found the biggest bunch of weirdos on the internet over here. Go ahead.
Talking about channeling, are there any messages coming about? Well, we've been talking a lot on here about the change in spirituality and a shift coming. Is there any messages coming from your channeling about that?
I'm going to say it this way. How does she put it? I'm going to try and translate this properly. Give yourself a break. Don't let yourself get away with murder. And just relax.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
okay.
I'll take that.
Don't go overboard with anything, but have a nice time. Live a good life. You know in your heart what's right. Live a good life. Don't worry about the rules. Just live a good life. And ultimately, be kind. That's what I get every day.
Well, that's, yeah. I mean, that it could be worse.
I'll take it.
It could be much worse. Yeah.
My wife was talking to me this afternoon. She says, you're going to have to get a new business card printed. I said, oh, yeah. See, I just got promoted.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm an archpriestess.
You just handwrite it on there. Or
No. I got high class business cards here. I'm gonna get it done properly.
Yeah. I've had the same problem with that. Sure, I had some printed out for the witching hours, and then we made a web page and all kinds of other stuff. But now I got a whole stack I haven't used, so I gotta use them first.
Doesn't that rot?
Yes.
Doesn't that rot? I'm still finding cards I had from when I first got into craft 30 years ago or 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's crazy stuff. But the thing is, they're just material things.
Yes.
It doesn't mean anything.
No. We had a question from Luna.
Go ahead, please.
That's the wrong one. She was saying her matron goddess is a Set, and then she said, I have a natural connection to her. How can I actually start to work with her?
Move slowly. Ask her to guide your hand. Ask her for guidance. She's a goddess. She's infinitely old. You don't say that to a lady, but okay. She's been equally present. Yes, I know. She helped design the dinosaurs. Okay, great. Yes, I know this. But be patient and ask. Don't ask for everything at once. Certainly do not ask for material wealth. Never ask your patron goddess for material wealth. Ask for guidance, ask for wisdom, and ask for suggestions on how to conduct yourself. They're not going to make you into a monk or a nun, but they are going to put you to a strong set of standards to live by. Not necessarily rules, but standards. You make the rules. That's the best I can tell you.
Yeah.
And I lived in a monastery. I lived by a rather rigid set of rules, and I've had enough vows given to me to choke a horse. The goddess hasn't put a single rule on me, but gave me a guideline, and it's stiffer than anything I've ever had to practice.
Yeah.
It's a discipline, as they say.
That's
a divine discipline.
Yes.
What else would you like to know? Short of my ATM pin and what I did in the intelligence services and the Navy, I'm an open book, baby. You know,
no real spy stories. Speaking about the Buddhist stuff, I went back and listened to your interview last year with us, and you shared a lot of the story about becoming a Buddhist monk and the Buddhist leader recognizing you from past life and all of this. So I was wondering, because you shared a lot of information about the Buddhist monk and the past life tidbits there. Were there any other past lives that you have a strong connection to or of a greater significance than others?
Okay. Since 1997, after he recognized me, okay, and he didn't do it on one of these levels where they called the New York Times and said, we're going to recognize this person. He picked two of us out of a crowd, and he picked, there were over 300 people there. He picked about 4 people. And one of them was another pagan Wiccan person. Good. I'm going to say it this way: good Jewish Wiccan lady from New Jersey. Okay, you know that symbol that's got the priest, has the goddess like this. She had a Star David welded between the fingers. You know? Okay. He taught me a way to clear my mind and quiet my mind of mundane chatter that our Western culture is addicted to. Everybody goes into the bank. Used to be you just stood there and kind of, thought about your day. None of these days you're sitting there with a damn phone in your face, right? Okay. As I quieted myself, this is in the 7 years I lived in a monastery. Okay, Buddhist nun. Okay, girl monk, whatever. Okay. I'm also ordained as a yogini, which is the lay version of it. It's just the magical side. Okay. As I learned to quiet my mind and be settled with myself, over time, I touched upwards of about 10 past lives. Now, people say to me all the time, "Oh, I wouldn't know who I was in a past life." You're you.
Yeah.
You're you. You had a different name, a different body, maybe a different ancestry and a different family, but you're you. Okay. Just a different chicken soup. Okay. I was interviewing in 2001, February 2001. I flew out to Vancouver. I had been invited out to a very, very senior nun. She was ordained back in the late 60s. Okay. She was one of the first 3 Americans initiated as Tibetan nuns.
Wow.
Okay. And there were 3 of them. Okay. And I met her on the internet. We talked. I got on the phone. We talked. And her congregation rented a retirement home, an old one. Okay. But it had 3 industrial kitchens. It had regulation staircases. It had extra wide elevators, like hospital elevators. It had everything. Lovely gardens, all this stuff. And what they wanted to do was establish a bed and breakfast for Buddhist teachers that were on the circuit. They would come there, have a free room, board, and all that kind of stuff, get fed and then the whole thing. And that local congregation would literally get to have the best teachers in the world to come there, because these teachers would be on the circuit and they needed somebody, instead of staying in some hotel to go till their next event, they could come and stay there for free.
Nice.
Okay. And what she needed was, she was the senior nun. She was the senior monastic, Buddhist monastic in the Canadian prison system. So she was on the road 3 to 5 days a week. And the other nuns that were there, I'm going to call it this way, it sounds like an insulting term, were all these Susie Moonbeam New Age types. They were useless.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They wouldn't make the check out for the gas bill or the garbage bill or something like this. And she said, "What do you do for a living? Do you just live in the monastery?" I said, "No, I'm a corporate staffer at Lockheed Martin headquarters." "Do you know how to do things?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Come on, fly up. Let's talk." So I flew up to Vancouver, and she wanted me to be her executive officer. I would run the damn place when she was on the road. She had me teach a couple of teachings while I was there. I did. The Sangha loved me. They got me a missionary visa. They authorized a financial stipend. And because I was still going to continue to work for Lockheed, I was just going to do it all over the internet. I already did. I ran my entire security operation in Denver, Colorado, from a monastery in the Catskills. So I could do it online. My car was packed. I'd given my apartment away. I was going to leave on the 13th of September. 9/11 happened, and I couldn't go.
Wow.
Literally overnight, the rules on internet encrypted traffic changed, and I couldn't go.
Wow.
And my life has been a series of world tragedies like that have prevented me from going to do certain things. But that was what was supposed to happen. And in fact, at one point, we thought about me just going up there, living in the monastery, and a mile and a half across the border was like a mailboxes plus the head offices you could rent. And I would simply drive across the border every day, do my Lockheed job there, and then come back to the monastery at night. Okay, the nursing home monastery place. And even those rules changed.
Wow.
It became very draconian to get across the border. So I just said, I'm not going to be able to do that. So I didn't. And that broke my heart. I really wanted to do that. It would have been a lot of fun. I really was looking forward to doing it. Okay. Now, during that time, when I was visiting that nun, one day she took me to a Northwest museum, cultural museum. And at one point, we were in a Japanese section of the museum, and I was looking at the little figurines they had there. And I said to her, I said, I think I was once a geisha girl. She says, "What time period?" I said, "I think late 19th century. And she looked at me and she says, "The obi was in Yokosuka, Japan, and I was the headmistress." And we sat down and had a very interesting lunch.
I bet.
So I've identified about 10 identities, not necessarily with names, but maybe by their skills and their crafts.
Yeah.
And I've touched as many, about 50 going back. Okay. Things that I know. Something that got me in trouble when I was a good Catholic boy in second grade. My father came home from work one day. I was allowed to work in his wood shop. I couldn't use power tools because I was in second grade, but I could use all the hand tools. Okay. And he came home one day and I was in the backyard and I was trying to shoot at shoot something in the yard with a crossbow. So where did you get that? And my uncle looked at it and says, "Wow, this is really good. How'd you know how to make this?" I said, "Well, there's this Swiss guy in my head that showed me how."
Oh, wow.
Okay. This is what happens when your mind is clear. As a child, my mind was a lot clearer than it was as an adult until I got in a monastery and quieted my head down. I've had monks come to the monastery I lived in for 7 years, 97 to 2004. And they would come to town, especially ones from the monastery that that predecessor from the early 19th century in
Mhm.
Tibet, southern Tibet, came up to me and they called me by that guy's name, Sanak. Okay, and shook hands with me. And I never shook hands with him. It was like I was there again. It was like this person that, yeah, I met last year in college. You know, it was like
Yeah.
that kind of a memory. It's a very unique experience. But the bottom line is, when people say, I want to know who and what I was, the average person was nobody.
Yeah.
They
Mhm.
they were mothers. Okay. And people say,
Mhm.
well, how did you die in those past lives? Spears, gunshots, bombs, earthquake, fever, childbirth. Yeah.
I
Okay,
got one of those too. Yeah.
you got the drift, you know.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
it was, that's what the memories are like. And if you're not
Mhm.
in for a real horror movie, don't try digging into
Yeah,
those old memories.
really.
Trust me.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Mhm.
I'm a
Mhm.
combat veteran, and some of those memories scared the snot out of me. You
Yeah.
know?
Yes.
Any other
Mhm.
questions, please?
Um, have you seen if you've had any ET past lives?
I can't confirm or deny that.
Okay. We'll leave it at that then.
Well, no, I can say this. When
Okay.
I was about 14, I had lost time.
Yes. Mhm.
I was on a hilltop. I ridden my bicycle up to this high spot. Our town had some high hills. We were in foothills upstate New York, and it was after supper, about 6 o'clock. And I was up there, and I was, because I got up on the hill with this Lafayette walkie-talkie. Okay, anybody old enough to remember Lafayette radio will know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
CB radio. And I was talking to a friend of mine down in town who had a base station. And all of a sudden, I started getting all this interference. It's about 6:30 at night. I've got interference. I was on the hilltop. My bike was up there with me. I got my awareness back about 11:30 at night. I was sitting down.
Wow.
There is a elementary school at the bottom of the hill, still somewhat up. Okay, at the bottom of the hill, and I got my awareness back sitting in one of those little strap swings, you know, and my bike
Yeah.
was laying there on its side. And I got home and I got grounded for a month. ET got me grounded for a month.
Yeah. Damn you.
I'm holding a grudge. You know.
Man.
Yeah.
Okay, now
Missing time is fascinating.
here's the scary part that goes with that. I never had any kids when I was a boy person. When I was married,
Mhm.
we had 6 miscarriages, but we never had any kids.
Wow.
People ask me, well, did you ever have any kids? No, we had my marriage with a wife at that time as a boy person. We had 6 miscarriages. If I have any children, they're in Vietnam and Korea, and they're about 50 years old now.
Interesting.
But with all these 23andMe and Ancestry.com, I just
Mhm.
dread it. One of these days, somebody is going to touch me because I think ET took my younger self, my younger boy self's sperm.
Yeah.
And I have, as a journalist, I have
Mm.
interviewed women who were taken 15 years ago or something like that, and then
Mhm.
recently taken and introduced to their hybrid children who all talk to them with telepathy.
Yes.
Talk to her in telepathy. I've interviewed 3 like that.
It's a lot. I think it's a lot more common than we think it is that has
I think it
happened.
is. I think it is. The fact that I was able to interview 3 from 3 different parts of the country,
Yeah.
and every one of them was just credible as hell.
Mhm.
And I ran them through the ringer. I mean, I knew how to interrogate people, so you know, I ran them through the ringer. But it was, we had one take a lie detector test, the whole works, you know, and it was solid. So
Wow.
it's a very real phenomena. And if I
Mhm.
ever have night sweats, it's because one of these days somebody's going to reach up. They're going to find Cheryl Costa with fatherhood alleles to them.
Yeah. Yeah. They're going to be real surprised.
Yeah. But you know, in a way, if that happened happens in the United States, I did not sow my wild oats in the United States.
Yeah.
So my flavor is, yeah, okay, bring it on. We got confirmation of ET, baby.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's still scary.
Yeah. I can see that. Mm,
We live a crazy life. All of us do in one way, shape, or form,
yes.
Yeah.
and some of us more than
Yours is
others.
particularly crazy, Cheryl. You've done some amazing, incredible, different things in your life.
Okay, the last cool thing that just came up.
Okay.
You'll love this. I got a phone call a couple of nights ago. Somebody approached me and said, I heard that you're one of the 10 people who helped get the word transgender in the dictionary, because it didn't exist before about 1982, 1985 timeframe. Okay, it didn't exist. It
Yeah.
was transsexual person. Okay,
Mhm.
and that was a medical term. We were trying to get away from a non-medical term for those of us who were doing public relations, going on talk shows, being interviewed by editors of newspaper magazines and things like that. Okay. And so the way it got into the dictionary is we worked very hard for 10 years. We talked to a couple of major dictionaries, Merriam-Webster's, Oxford, all those people, and said, how does a book get in the dictionary? And they said, usage. So by about 10 of us who were out as hell and had nothing to lose, doing all those interviews, trying to make trans people real. And we got the word transgender into the dictionary over 10 years because of usage. Okay, we worked very aggressively to do that. There was a plan behind it.
Yeah.
Okay, almost nobody knew it, and there's only 3 of us left alive. Okay, and I got approached the other night. They want me to write a book, since the other 2 are not writers. They want me to write a book about what it was like to be a trans activist in the bad old days of the 80s and 90s. I wrote 12,000 words today. Think about that. 12,000 words. How many of you can't put 100 words down on a sheet of paper?
I know some teenagers can't put a sentence together.
There's that too. And I've got AI software too, and it helps me correct the sentences, punctuation, and sentence organization as I work.
Cool.
Okay, which is terrific stuff. Okay?
Yeah.
It's a pro writer, they call it. It's really fantastic. And so I wrote about 12,000 words today. The rest of the book is that's more of my history of evolving into who I am and my authentic self. And then I'm going to fill the book up with specific essays about my adventures, good and bad, as an activist. You know, you go and do a TV interview at some TV station, come out to the parking lot, get the hell beat out of you or something. You know, been there, got the T-shirt, you know, got the scars to show for it. I got more scars from that stuff than I did from combat in Vietnam.
Wow.
Isn't that strange? You know,
Terrible.
So it's that's what they came to me and asked. My schedule was packed with projects. I've got a very aggressive editor. Had me quite literally scheduled into next year for my writing work. And we just, like I said, we just finished a year's work producing the spy novel.
Yeah.
And she sat down with me over coffee yesterday. We talked about it at length. She told me what her objections were. I told her what my objections were. We came to an agreement. We shook hands across the coffee table, and we both have rules about how this is going to be done. And she said, move it to the top of the queue. Everything else is going to take a back seat to this. You've got 4 months, maybe 5 at the outside. I want it out before Thanksgiving.
Good.
So I figure it'll probably be 60, 70,000 words, maybe 80. I don't know. Like I said, I wrote 12,000 words today. I wasn't even thinking about it, you know. So it should be a very interesting book. It's the viewpoint of what it's like to be an activist in the United States, how we were able to use the media to our advantage back in the day, how it's changed. Okay. And then also I'm going to write essays about all the horror of what's been going on in the last 2 years.
That's what I was just getting ready to ask. As someone who's experienced it from the beginning of its awareness in the public. How do you feel it is going right now?
Let's say it this way. Pastor at the Unitarian Church asked me if I had some input on this. And I sent him over 2,500 word short story called The Diary. And it's a kind of a Twilight Zone kind of story. It talks about all these states rounding all the trannies up and putting them into these hospitals, very nice hospitals, but hospitals nonetheless, a gilded cage and another view. And they are free to go home anytime they want if they transition back.
Yeah.
And it's the story of how they were killing each other as acts of love while they were in the place. And the news never got out of the place because it was tightly controlled. They would never hear about people inside the place because it was being done under health code rules. So it was all of what was going on. And essentially the prison camp was protected by HIPAA. And they were called reorientation camps. And it tells the story of different people making shanks, and as an act of love, two people would hug themselves and stab each other as an act of love. Okay.
Wow.
That kind of thing. And a friend of mine read it and said, "My God, Cheryl, you say you don't write horror genre? Holy goodness, you know."
Yeah.
But one individual comes out, she let them change her back. Louise became Lewis again. They released him a free man. He walked out of the camp with a duffel bag on his shoulder, walked down to a red light, set the duffel bag down, and walked in front of the next Mack truck that came by. Cops picked it all up and everything. The family got the duffel bag back a few days later, and they found, wrapped up inside the clothes, a diary with all of the suicides documented for the time that Louise Lewis was in the camp.
Wow.
And they started sending it to those private email sites that all the major papers have for leak people who do tips and leaks. And they bring the entire structure down. They bring down the party who put all this stuff in place and the whole thing. I gave that to my pastor, and he called me back about 2 hours later and said, "You put me in tears. We've got to get our social justice league to talk to this issue with the State House." So what's the word I want to look for? Influence doesn't necessarily come from protesting on the street. It is talking into influential words, is what I've learned over the years. And I lived in Washington, D.C. 30 years. So I know how the influence machine works. Okay, you've been in the right years, things happen. So it's horrible what's going on right now. There is adequate pushback right now. I think a lot of it, unless the election goes the wrong way. If it goes the wrong way, we're going to be Germany 1935. But if it goes the correct way, these states are going to start loosening up. They're going to have to. It's going to affect them economically because a lot of the most educated and talented people they have in their work pool are in the LGBT community, and a lot of them are trans people.
Yeah. Like, why can't we just
didn't mean to be depressing, you know?
Why can't we just
be kind?
Be kind and love each other? Like, who gives a shit? Like, just be nice to each other.
Have you heard a term called Watigo?
No.
There's several books been written about it. Watigo is the negative subconscious evil. And because we're connected to all consciousness everywhere, we are plugged into this sense of Watigo. Okay. People who are normally nice people, given the right circumstances, turn into absolute monsters. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is part of it. You hardly heard of trans people until these people started making a big nuisance about it.
Yeah.
You got all these people stirred a lot of women athletes up, telling them that the male athletes are putting on dresses and taking their trophies and things. And I'm of the school. Why are you out there being a swimming champion or a running champion or a weightlifting champion if you work that hard to get in a dress, can't you just wear a dress? That's my attitude personally, but the problem is it's starting to affect other areas. I'm supposed to receive a crone's crown at Pagan Pride Day, I was told. And they asked me if I would accept, and I struggled with it. And I actually sat down to the people who were organizing this thing, and I said, I don't want it. I'd like to turn it down, to be honest with you. I don't want to diminish the event for the genuine crones. I consider myself a counterfeit woman. Okay. Now,
Yeah.
Hey, I took the hits. I took the 40% pay cut. People, after I changed, people treated me like I had lost 85% of my brain. Yes. Okay. And I get it. Believe me, I do. I've been there. I've worn the girl suit. I've taken the hits like everybody else. Okay. But I respect genuine women who were socialized to be, excuse the expression, I'm saying this politely, chattel. Okay. I respect that and I understand it. And it took me a long time to understand it, but I do. And I have great respect for natural women. I defected to become a woman. I gave up everything to become a woman. Okay. This wasn't just so I could wear dresses. This is, I became this. Okay. And there was a part of me from previous lifetimes that remember this, So my point is, I went to these people and said, I really would rather not be crowned. I don't want to diminish the other crone witches here because I view myself as a counterfeit. And unfortunately, 35 of them came up to me and said, no, you're going to accept the crown.
You're gonna put on it. You can put it on you whether you want it or not.
Well, their feeling was that I'm as much a mother and an aunt to a lot of people. Okay. I may not have had children, but at least 25 or 30 households call me Aunt Cheryl. So I can't argue with it. I'm the maiden aunt in the attic.
Yeah. And women's right is an interesting thing too. Like we're talking about so many like social things right now, but it's one of those things where as someone who's not a woman, I understood that those things happened for sure. But for me, I think it really came into light being an educator, being a male educator, and being someone who was military. I'm a combat veteran as well.
Okay.
So
thank you for your service.
Well, thank you for yours for sure. But when I moved, like in the military, you get a task, you get a mission, and you need to accomplish that mission. And even being lower rank, I was given plenty of missions. Hey, you need to accomplish this. Go take care of it. Get it done. And then I would come back and I would say, hey, I've accomplished this mission. They're like, good job. And then, whatever it was, you move on to the next one, or it's the end of the day or whatever. And then when I moved into education, I started realizing that I had like no responsibility. I had I couldn't make any decisions. Even though I had all these college degrees, I was given less responsibility and I was respected less than I ever was as like an E3 in the Army. And one day I was just commiserating with some of the teachers in the teacher lounge, and I was sitting there and I was like, it's crazy. Like I had so much more freedom and I was treated so much more with more responsibility and just respected as a person so much more in the military as like a grunt than I am with 2 degrees working in education. And one of the people I was talking to was a woman who had been in education for a long time. And she says, well, yeah, of course. That's what it's like to be an educator. Why do you think it's that way? And I was like, I don't know. I brought up all these different reasons. She's like, because it's been a women dominated field. Because women have been historically the teachers. This profession has never been allowed to have any kind of responsibility and independence because men didn't want to give women the power to do so. And as I thought about it, I said, that's the perfect answer because I couldn't think of any other reason why it's that way. For sure.
When I worked at Lockheed Martin, when I was extremely high maintenance, big hair, big makeup, big nails, big heels, right? My nickname at Lockheed Martin, after I got past the initial pushback and shock to my transition, I was a snappy dresser, and my nickname at Lockheed at one point after about 3 years was Napoleon in heels because I ran a tight ship.
Mhm.
But it took me almost 3 years to convince leadership that they didn't stick a straw in my head, suck out 20% of my brain,
Mhm.
and that I was just as good as I ever was. Actually, now that the trans monkey was off my back, I was actually probably better,
Yeah.
you know. And once that point got along, and I got a lot of other women allies behind me because, give you an example, the one shop I worked in at the time, the men's room was 2 doors down the hall. The women's room was probably half a block away, so to speak, in the
Mm.
building. Okay. And I was back from my surgery and I looked at the other women and I said, why are you allowing the 3 men that work in the shop to walk about 20 feet for a restroom and when there's 15 of us? I said, if we all put in a request for a women's room close to our workstations, we can push the boys out. And they looked at me and said they hadn't thought of that. And I said, well, let's think about that. And we did, and they did. Okay. So I became an activist within the women cubes, but don't some people say, well, that's because she used to be a boy. No, I got to find out how the other half lived and I spoke up.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's one, yeah, for sure. And it's one of those things where, as a guy, like I said, even if exist, it's hard to put your finger, have your finger on the pulse until you get to experience a little bit of it. I'm not even saying I experienced what it's like to be a woman educator, but I realized as a male educator why that field has been so, kind of, I don't know, repressed, I guess could be a word, as opposed to being in a field that I've been in before, which was always male dominated, where I had lots of freedom and lots of responsibility, and I could kind of do what I wanted as long as I got the job done. And then when I moved to a more woman dominated field, all of a sudden it was like, you have to do it this way, you have to do it this way, you have to do it this way, you can't make your own decisions. And I was like, why is that? Well,
Yeah.
my wife
I found out.
is a career librarian. My wife is a career librarian. She was the head of the toxicology library at the EPA for 15 years. Okay. And she's working part-time just to have her finger still in the business. She works in circulation at a local library about 8 blocks away. Okay. And it's back to that same women dominated field and the same responsibility issue. Okay.
Mhm.
It's a similar environment. And again, you got 2 radical feminists in this household. So, we discuss how to go make it better,
Yeah.
short of throwing a bomb in the window, but so it's getting better. But, look at what the pushback was the last 2 years besides the trans issue. That was the distraction and hate issue. But they put reproductive rights back 20 years or 30 years or 40 years, depending upon where you are. Okay. That's wrong. That's wrong. As they say, if men had babies, abortion would be a sacrament. Okay. So my view on the whole thing is if the election goes the correct way, a lot of this stuff's going to get undone real quick. Okay. If it doesn't go the right way, it's going to be Germany 1935.
Yeah.
Okay. They make a lot of jokes about, quote, Sleepy Joe, but for God's sakes, he's done more in 4 years than the other guy did. Okay. And oh, by the way, he's not a convicted felon either. So,
well,
Yeah, it's a
I don't have a
president.
whole lot of hope for American politics in general right now. I don't think I think I was a young man the last time they had someone who I thought was worth voting for, which is one of the reasons why luckily I got out of politics before I got into it, which is
Yeah.
good thing.
Linda told me
So
I
I
could
don't
run
know.
for politics over her dead body.
Yeah,
Well,
I was
it
kind of like
works
that
out.
with him too.
I was looking at trying to work and think for a think tank when I got out of college, and instead I'm hosting a paranormal podcast. So I'll take that. It's much better.
Yeah.
Much better. Do you have any other questions lined up, Jenny?
I do, but I wanted to remind chat that if you guys have questions, don't forget to put it in
Yeah.
the chat so that we
Please.
can get to them. Because
Yep. We have
we're
a few
running
more
out of
minutes
time.
left.
We got 10 minutes left already.
Yep.
I don't know how that
I know.
happened, but
It
here
went
we
fast.
are.
And I do want to say before you get to it, Jenny, they have the
Mhm.
links for all of Cheryl's books
Yep.
up at the top of the chat. And if you're listening later in another time in another place, you can check the section below. I'll have all of Cheryl's links down there for you to click on and to be able to purchase.
Which, if you are
the
familiar
books.
with my stream, we have the "What's Your UFO Sightings in Your Area?" That's
Oh yeah, we
Cheryl's
should.
book.
Yeah, we should tell her
This
what
is
we
the
do.
book that we
Yeah.
use. I have a channel point redemption, which is like people earn channel points the more they watch the stream. They use the channel points to redeem "What's Your UFO Sightings in Your Area?" So we use your book as like a fun little trivia thing. And so, yeah. But my question was from your Charmaine's Tales of Wonder. My favorite stories in here were the reptilian species stories.
Okay.
2 questions. Are
Sure.
you going to write more of those? Because they would make a fabulous series. And second, what is your inspiration for that?
Okay. Yes, we're going to write more stories. I just loosely published one. I test published it on Amazon, on Facebook. I'll send you the PDF of it. It's basically the title is "Thank Dragons for Beer."
I love it.
It's the Closnians and the protagonist Yasmin. Okay, talks about Yasmin's very famous, very popular name in the Closnian culture, and they had the equivalent to xenoanthropologists and xenoteachers here with us 12,000 years ago. And the problem was it was a hunter-gatherer society. So and this is all backed up by our current anthropology and archaeology theory. Okay, I've got this all backed up with Smithsonian research. Okay,
Cool.
And what the flavor does is that these big hunting villages like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, the hunter-gatherers would go and they'd make it back into town after a week's worth of hunt or 10 days worth of hunt, and they would all the nests of the different clans would get together and talk and feast and everything. And the local women had brewed a brew using local grains. It's similar to beer. Okay, and as long as the beer held out, the party kept on going. You know, it didn't end. And when the beer ran out, the party quit. Okay, so one of the Closnian teachers, these upright walking reptilian teachers, taught them to utilize those wild grains and how to cultivate them, and it gradually took more and more people to help cultivate that and make more grain, grow more grain to make more beer and all this kind of thing. So in the end of the story, essentially, the truth is Adam and Eve weren't thrown out of the village because Eve ate an apple and gave it to Adam. It's because she gave him beer, and it started an agricultural society. And the people who read it on Facebook went absolutely bananas. Okay, there's going to be a series of those, and I'm going to be writing a series of. See, the Yasmin one you read in Charmaine's Tales, that was 3 individual short stories about Closnian birthing practices.
Yes.
The men who read that hated the thing, and the women all resonated with it because it was a women's story.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm going to go back and also write some of those. There were those 7 children that were the variegated eggs. Okay. I'm going to go back and write those stories, individual stories or novels about each of those divine children from the variegated eggs.
This is exactly the answer I was hoping you would say.
Well,
because
it's a large queue. There's 3 years worth of work there altogether, you know.
The whole time I'm reading it, I'm like, man, this would make like the best series. So you got like, it's like the history and the culture and like all of this cool stuff that you've got going on there, that is to flesh it out even more would be fantastic.
The trick when I was in writing school, one of the biggest things they taught us was create a good universe. Before you can have Lord of the Rings, you have to have Middle Earth. Before you can have Star Wars, you have to have that galaxy.
Yep.
Don't start out with your characters doing something. Build that universe and make it a rich universe with good stuff, conflict, all that stuff, and then build real rich characters, and then go and put them in your universe and go and write a good backstory. Like I was telling you with the spy before we went on, the spy novel, actually the first story I wrote ended up being the last story in the book, because it started when these spies were retired by 15 years and they called them out of retirement for one last job. Okay. As old ladies, so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay? All right. So when we wrote the novel, we went back, and what was originally backstory for both characters, we literally built that into the story. So it's a 95,000 word novel that's in 8 parts. Some of the parts are like short story, not chapters, but more like short stories. Several of the parts are novellas or actually a full novel length story. So it's going to be a fascinating story. And what I'm hoping to do is the same thing with the Claustians and the Yasmins and the Synod Warriors and the Synod Council and all of that stuff that's in there.
Yes.
I'm infinitely familiar with them. Is sometime in the future they manage to channel a human from this world. And 25% of this person who's on Klaus Prime, 857 light years away, is channeled into this person on Earth, a mystic on Earth, and 25% of the mystic on Earth's consciousness is channeled into the academic on Klaus Prime. And what's happened on Klaus Prime in the last 10 years, they now have community theater. They now have barbershop quartets. They did not have this stuff before this consciousness came there.
That is a fascinating imagery of reptilians doing barbershop quartets.
It's a tail wagging good time.
I love it. So yeah, I'm going to be buying some more books. Well, we were joking around about how we don't want to live 1,000 years, but you might need some more. You might need a few of them 100 years so you can write all these freaking books you got going on.
That's funny. Okay, that 1,000-year thing. That's the scary part about it. They retired me at 62 years old. I'm 72. I told them when I got retired, I said, "Are you crazy? My family's got, I know there's other people around here who'll probably be dead in 3 years, but I said, in my case, my family has both on my mother's and father's side, both sides had Centurion genes. My doctor told me you'll live to be over 100, short of disease or accident." Okay.
Good. Because I need all those reptilian stories, Cheryl.
There you go. And my father died in his mid-90s. My mother is in those same ages now, and she's got too much, excuse the expression, piss and vinegar to die. So the bottom line is, if they start giving us these bots to live 1,000 years, we're going to have to come up with some other kind of social structure.
Oh yeah,
because we can't be retiring people at 60 years old or not hiring them.
Hiring them. Yeah.
I want to go out there and get a part-time job. Nobody's going to hire me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they want some kid. They don't want the experience.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I'm a little slower now, but maybe I can't keep up with all the technology. But I was retired as a project manager, for God's sakes. I know how to run a business. So here we go. So the flavor is that we're going to have to, before we start making people live 1,000 years, we better start rethinking our social structure, because it would be a hell of a curse to have people live that long with nothing freaking to do.
Yeah. And we also have to reprogram the way we think about age.
Yes.
And,
there's all kinds of things that are with that too, because, and then the whole idea with AI and jobs going away and stuff, this whole idea of you're going to have a large group of people who don't need to work. So how do they have money, and how do we, there's all kinds of issues coming up I think we got to deal with.
We're
Mm.
going to
So-
share a lot of things. And to the nice young lady who said, "I love your crown." Okay, now this looks like a really fancy crown. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, you want to get one just like it, provided you have the rank to wear it. Okay, if you want one just like it, go to Spirit Halloween online, and you can probably buy it for under $20. I guarantee you. My first crown cost me $150. It was nowhere as nice as this.
Wow. Yeah. And I had to put mine on when I saw Cheryl's. I was like, okay,
And
it's crown time. Crown time.
Hey, put the crown
How'd I
on.
get
Everybody
mine?
can put theirs on. You know.
You could have put your wizard hat on. You got a
I could have
wizard
put my
hat.
wizard hat. I could have.
You know, I got to tell you one like cool thing with our initiation we're going to do. We're actually going to do it in the sanctuary of the church on a Thursday night. There's absolutely nothing else booked on Thursday nights at the church for some reason. There's all kinds of AA groups and things on Wednesday, and there's all kinds of women's groups and all kinds of stuff all week long. But Thursdays,
Yeah.
the place is dark. Okay, so we're going to take over. We're going to take. There you go. There you go.
There we go.
We're going to take over the sanctuary, and picture this. There's going to be the 4 instructors, and I'm going to be sitting in the throne in the center with my sword
Ooh,
when they're
we
marched
go.
in.
that sounds fun.
So it should be, we're trying to change the standards a little bit so our witch rituals don't necessarily have to be done in private
Yeah.
and in hiding. We're now
Yeah.
becoming a mainstream faith. We should be able to invite our families to our witch rituals, like initiations and things, like we invite people to first communion,
Yeah.
confirmation, all that kind of bar mitzvahs, that kind of thing.
Don't have to hide anymore.
We shouldn't
Yeah.
have to.
Yeah, I agree.
I think we're almost at the end of the show, aren't we?
We are.
We
yeah.
are. So I actually want to say we'll do our false finish here for all the people who are listening to the podcast later. We're going to go ahead and leave you now. I do want to say before we head out tonight, thank you so much, Cheryl, for coming in and talking to us again. I really enjoyed it. Real quick, we are not going to be here next week. Next week on the Thursday will be the 4th of July. And so we'll be blowing stuff
We'll be
up.
somewhere
So,
blowing stuff up.
yeah,
Yeah.
we'll be somewhere blowing stuff up. So we won't be here next week, but the week after that, on the 11th, we'll be here with Alex Matsuo, and we're going to talk about haunted hospitals. And we're also going to talk about, connected to some things we talked about tonight, the importance that women played in paranormal research.
Paranormal. Yeah.
So we're going to talk about that specifically. And on the 18th, we have Dr. Mona Sabani coming on, who is a cognitive neuroscientist who has written a book about bridging science and spirituality and kind of the unknown. So we have some really good shows coming up. So make sure you join us for that. So for everyone listening to us on the podcast, take care, and we will see you all next time.
Bright blessings and das vidanya.
And for everyone who's still hanging out and chat with us on Twitch and over on YouTube, we are going to go find someone to raid. Except I think I know we're going to go raid Black Sheep Meat.
Actually,
Playing
meat
Baldur's
is
Gate tonight.
and also raising more money for St. Jude's.
Oh,
So
awesome.
you got a,
Well, that'd be
you got a
great.
few pits to throw over there. You can make
Thank
her
you.
eat. You can make her eat some really sour warhead thing too, which is always
Oh,
fun.
okay. Yeah. And St. Jude is always a great organization to raise money for. So we're definitely behind that. Thanks everyone who came in tonight and for all the questions, for all the banter. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you guys tomorrow night on Jenny's reading night.
Yep.
So it'll be Friday. So we're looking forward to that. And everyone else have a great evening. Let me go ahead and get the raid going here.
Keisha, you're too early on the raid emotes. She got them up already.
We're getting there. Let's go. Let's go. All right, everybody. Take care. We'll see y'all soon. Good night.
Bye. All right.